Yeah, I don't know that I understand my work, but I can certainly try to place it. And part of that is because our work are shifting all the time. So I'm in digital media practice in media arts and humanity here at Sussex, and my area of focus is around human augmentation technology, where I think about the entanglement we have with machines, our body, so rethinking sensory aspect. And today I'm going to present you. I'm trying to not start the presentation already because I'm going to read to stay focused. But today I'm going to present an instrument that is in progress. So it's very much exposing my failures, my vulnerabilities, and understand that that's part of creating openness. And that is an essential part of my practice. So with that, I'm going to start, and also because it's a work in progress, or the process of it, the documentation is quite poor, but I'm happy to work with that because it is what it is. So providing I can turn my page, okay. So, this talk is about intimate affective technology integration with our bodies. It has two parts. Part one, whose bodies, whose data, whose interpretation. Part two is the instruments are built in response. This talk raises questions about transparency and trust that are central to explainable AI. When a proprietary consumer wearable tells you what my brain is doing, and you cannot see how it is decided, yet it claims it has a shift from proximity to classification. What does affective infrastructure look like? Makes me think, who do I invite in my bed or inside my head? Affect sits in a broader context that includes current relation between large language models, agentic human relation, and anthropologization of AI, the uncanny valley effect, and more precisely, the ELISA effect. Sorry, I have a French accent. The tendency to project human understanding onto pattern machine systems to treat fluency as intelligence. These run through this project, so to bear that in mind. But today I'm zooming in, consuming the Muse wellbeing EEG headbands, and one of three tools that forms the Synthsorium, which is the made-up instrument made of other kind of tools and put together. So here we have modular synths, which I don't know if you're familiar with what modular synths is, but you can modulate oscillation that gets and then it creates sounds, or you can put samples into it. So and get an audio feedback from this aspect. And then the interface I'm developing on the GUI over there on the top, and then the Muse headband, which is in a shadow in the middle, but usually lives on my head, not there, obviously. So these are the three areas. I'm not focusing so much on the modular synths because this is not what I'm focusing on today, is on the GUI interface itself. So interdisciplinary is not, so this is an interdisciplinary practice, and interdisciplinary is not a claim to field of knowledge, but moving between them, anchored in creative application. In my case, it is anchored in materiality that are about signal processing, from cultural signifier, from language, including coding, social norms, making creative practice not only a representation or experience, but also, more importantly, agency to reimagine new models, models that have been mapped out, that have not been mapped out. For me, to build new experiences means to build the paths and tools to get to an expressions. Those paths don't exist. They had to be crafted from where I'm standing as an artist, as a research artist. So here, what is invisible is the work of moving in the field. And here it refers to a 3-year funded project called Full Stack Feminism, which is also a toolkit and a method in how do we do computational practice in addressing inequalities or bias or injustice. So how do we position ourselves in relation to that? And that was an essential part of, let's just say, building an instrument, which sometimes we don't have to create as we're walking existing paths. So to be aware that building here means making pathway and building your own tools. And today I will introduce in the process of the tool, building a tool. To present my process rather than solution or product is the willingness to be open. And be open means to present your failure and to be vulnerable. So as part of my practice, repair is also in place. Repair is essential. It manifests through community support, through shared processing and generous curiosity, which reflect on slow computing practice, slow as processing, not as, whatever slow means in general, as making sense of what we are being put into, and making and developing a vision, an orientation. That's what slow computing to me is, going deep rather than speedily. So we have better sense of orientation and shared vision. It means to build with time for conversation and knowledge exchange, not extraction. So one of the problems, I'm framing here the problems. I want to start with intimacy, with the fact that this technology is designed to be the last thing touching your body before you fall asleep. Muse invites us to sleep with it. That is not a metaphor, that is a business model. Consumer wellness technology that monitors your brain while you rest lead directly to questions found in explainable AI research like transparency, trust, interpretability, which becomes almost impossible when proprietary black box and opaque pipelines stand between you and your own signals. I'm referring here to Adam Curtis, a documentary of the Century of the Self that is made in thinking about how Century perfected the art of selling our desire back to us, but how the 21st century here is selling our bodies back to us. So when tech is coming in to the only place you have left to belong, the body itself, you have to start treating your own body as a kind of technology, something designed, objectified, and acted on. Safeguarding becomes an everyday care act. So the body is already contested. Let me show you by whom. There is no life that is. Sorry. I'm thinking. Are you seeing? Yeah, I think my slides are back to front, but no worries. You're getting the slide before. But anyway, so bodies are contested terrains. So the body is already contested. Let me show you by whom. There is no life that is not geographic. That's Ruth Wilson Gilman cited in McKittrick. The body has never simply belonged to itself. One of the questions is always who governs the claim. The body has always been proprietary. The question is only by who holds it. When genetics made that logic tradable, it becomes regulatory. France places the genetic body and the states supervise protection, permitting access only through medical and judicial channels. China claims it outright as a national resource, blocking foreign extraction entirely. The USA leaves it unlegislated proprietary by default, in practice by whoever writes the terms in service. 3 governance models, 3 different owners. Before anyone can come to your neurons, they came to your genes. So consumer technology inherits three different and often conflicting geographies, ways of picturing what the body is and what it is for, ways of shaping claims to belonging in a sense of following norms and states. I call this a three-body, or I frame this rather than call it, as a three-body problem, three different gravitational force. One that states what my body is, one that orients what my body can do, one that extracts what my body produces. I'm going to describe the three body towards forms of epistemological claim. So the first one is the medical body. And here also I'm talking quite broadly because it's only a talk, not a full paper or a book. Neurotechnology that states medical science from its earliest form see the body as something that needs to be fixed, to be examined, classified, diagnosed, and returned to legibility. This is the medical body, not a body that simply exists, but a body that is stated, a sign, a condition, and a baseline, a deviation from it. As Kate O'Riordan frames it in Genome Incorporated, the body becomes a bio-digital entity, a fleshly thing transformed by digital systems, where identity is reconstructed as a set of digital coordinates. What Kate says calls readily artifact of digital culture, interfaces and scores that transform how we understand ourselves. It exactly what happened when clinical language travels into consumer device. So what consumer wellness tech does, it takes that language, clinical, authoritative, historical, loaded, and route it through the headbands and an app. The muse tell you whether your meditation was calm or active. It states the body using categories borrowed directly from neuroscience, flattening into score, delivered in as statements. The authority to state what the body is, an authority built on over a century of medical practice, often exercised at least on least powerful bodies, travels into the consumer device. And it acts on users who have no access to the conception behind the statements, no knowledge of the history encoded in the categories, and no mean of appeal. And that's, again, not all users, but it's certainly not explained in the manual. The issue is neurotechnology and capacity to measure the body as such. It inherits the power to determine what counts as a legible body, from founders to analysis. And for some bodies that determines bodies that determination has always arrived as a sentence, then that's to think differently. For bodies already shaped by histories of medical pathologization, neurodivergent body, disabled body, racialized bodies, migrant bodies, this stating function is not neutral. It carries the full weight of who has historically been stated as deficient or excess or needs correction. That is what Hannah Belty's daughter and Roskis and Anna Nygren and I address in a forthcoming paper in Feminist Disability Studies. It's a chapter, actually. The next body is the body of defense, which, funny enough, well, it's not funny, but it claims a human-centric, the future is a human-centric approach. So it's no longer in interface as such, it's the wearable interface or inside our bodies. So defense, so the second body is the future super soldier. Defense research uses neurotechnology to orient the body towards operational readiness, cognitive enhancements, and battlefield advantage. The joint German-UK Ministry of Defense report, Human Augmentation, the Dawn of the New Paradigm, is explicitly the soldier's body is a platform to be upgraded. Survivability, mobility, and lethality, these are the optimization target. Near-future brain-computer interface for command and control neurostimulation, for sustained alertness, cognitive load monitoring, to keep the body performing beyond its natural limit, or even engaging with what the natural limit is. This is the terrain that Sandra Nelson and I have addressed in our talk in Biotechnology and the Politics of Augmented Body last year. This body does not belong to itself. It is oriented, pointed, controlled, sustained by an external system that decides what the body should be doing and when. The military body is the clearest version of what consumer neurotechnology does at scale. It puts the body inside a command architecture and keep it there. The same optimization, upgrade the body, extend its limit, keep it performing, migrate directly from the terminal controls to the wellness app. The language softens, the structure stays. Now the third body, the one that is in my bed. And of course, yeah, this is the image, but you can't see it. The consumer body, neurotechnology that extracts the third body, inherits from both future-proof your brain, that is the Muse marketing. It carries both inheritance at once, the medical promise of a corrected, legible body, and the military promise of a platform enhanced beyond its natural limit. Repackaged as self-care, sold as empowerment, delivered through a headband and a subscription. The body is still being stated, it is still being orientated, but now the user is positioned as the agent of their own optimization, which makes the governance invisible. Wellness neurotechnology weaponized, I'm using that term because it's been used by neurotechnologists, in the future orientation. Terms like optimize, enhance, future-proof migrate from military context into the language of self-care, where the common logic is obscured by the soften of the product design. Consumer neurotechnology participates in what Kate Crawford called body extractivism, transforming embodied experience into data that can be captured, classified, and acted upon. But the extraction here is only data. It is interpretative authority, it's not only data. It is interpretative authority. The Muse subscription does not unlock better sensors. The Muse 2 already contains 4 EEGs and channels. I'm leaving not being too descriptive. Conductive gold dry electrodes sampling at 250 hertz. And a 3-axis accelerometer, as well as a photoplethysmography sensor. So, and in all that in a 38.5 gram device. Whilst the subscription unlock is the interaction, which is the company that makes Muse, that owns Muse. So interaction interpretation, the categories, their threshold, their inherited clinical and military framework derived from personal insights. The wellness narrative is the product. The body signal is the raw material. The right to say what your brain is doing, that is what being sold back to you. That is what, yeah. So this is a post-consent regime, really. Your technically click, agree, but the real decision, what is measured and how it is classified, where the data goes, whose norm govern the verdict, and buried in the interface, in a term of service, in the architecture, you cannot inspect. Ooh. And that's reinforced by the Neurorights Foundation in 2024. That audit of 30 consumer neurotechnology companies found that 96.67 appeared to have access to consumer neural data with no meaningful restriction on how it is stored, shared, or sold. The body becomes the deposit. The extraction is continuous, intimate, and largely invisible. Medical science fixed the body without asking. Defense research oriented it without without asking. Wellness capitalism extract from it. And it charges a monthly subscription for the privilege. Three forces, one body. The body-mind is placed as the intersection of fixing, orienting, and extracting simultaneously. And here, when I keep talking about a body, I do talk about a body-mind, not just the body. They're all one in this talk. So here I've engaged with the materiality of the tool that I'm working with, and that's essential part of my practice. Is questioning the materiality of what you're building with. So you can understand better the boundaries that they produce and the cost that it means to build with this technology, because nothing is free. So this talk is also about what intimate affective technology integration with our bodies. Well, I'm gone back to, sorry, my things are not, oh, here we go. I'm gone. So everything that I have described so far is structural. Now I want to say where I am standing inside that structure. For a body, which is, again, situated knowledge and feminist practice, who is coding, who is designing these tools, who's funding these tools, etc. So here, in making my own made-up instrument, I'm positioning myself. So for a body already shaped by intersecting histories of gender, disability, citizenship, ethnicity, I have a lot of intersectionalities, so bear with me, colonial heritage and violence, the relationship to one's own body is already strange, already untuned, already subject to systems of classification to what not built with that body in mind. The signal that goes in, enclose and surround, diagnose, border, determination, wellness, score do not arrive neutral. They need to understand what those signals are, where they're coming from, and what they do is not a research question. It is a question of safeguarding. Safeguarding here is not an institutional procedure. It is a practice of everyday life, something you do every day just to stay knowing yourself or have access to yourself. Let me say that more plainly, belonging in a dominant political sense is framed by settlement and routine. I'm not sure that's more plain. You might belong somewhere on a map where you are documented, where your body is eligible as a system, so eligible as citizen or subject. Sorry, the light flicked and that's distractive. The body is the one territory that cannot be taken by a border force, and yet it is increasingly the place where sensor apps and algorithms are allowed to come in, read and decide what is happening. As Irene Fubara-Manuel argues, and they're here in the room, biometric technology, fingerprints, facial recognition, iris scanning have long served as instrument of bordering, transforming the body into a document that read verified and either admitted or refused. The body does not simply carry identity, it is made to perform legibility for systems that decide whether it belongs. This is not a universal claim. I am speaking from a specific position, but that specifically is the method, not the limit. Borderland, then I'm drawing from Borderland, Borderland Frontera Consciousness by Gloria Anzaldúa. To address this contested terrain, I draw from Gloria, border consciousness as a way of being with technology. Border consciousness, in short, means to stay awake, paying attention to what it feels like to live on the edge of overlapping systems that pull you in different directions. She names the neplanta, what a word to talk about liminal space, or the space in the middle, where multiple borders exist, where two or more forces clashes and are held teetering on the verge of chaos. Not the border as a line between two fixed states, but the border as a habitable condition. Not erasure, but the friction of inhabiting multiple conflicting systems at once, which is what we're experiencing, or I'm experiencing with certainly wearing a Muse headbands. Building with Gloria border consciousness, I reappropriate the state that map onto the building process. La facultad, or what she names la facultad, the heightened sensitivity to hidden power and opacity, the staying awake, being conscious, the border consciousness. The traversia, which is the creative crossing, rerouting, remapping process and transformation, is the open part where you're willing to be transformed in this conflict zone. But it's also thinking about strategy in a way, because it's creative crossing. So building with accountable fabulation, and the nuevos mitos, which is to do with building with accountable fabulation, configuring of human-technology relation. So this is a kind of value base that speak of very specific body, where you have to be contesting in everyday life practice. This is not my body, or I'm not a citizen. Then what does it mean to have technology that defines how you are or claims what you are? So such practice helps, in my view. Living with, so then also I'm drawing from Catherine McKittrick, who was introduced by Divya in this room. So I've got my community practice, and but it's a joy. So thank you. But Catherine, Gloria gives me the practice of staying oriented, awake inside the friction. McKittrick gives me the different data object, counter object, and geographies. McKittrick points to how Black communities are made to live with data, policy, report, carding, that ostensibly prove that those communities living outside normalcy are very verifiable outside of normalcy, giving over the data in exchange for capital. The data does not describe the body, it monitors it against it. McKittrick proposed that Black methods work through gathering multifariously textured tales, narrative, fiction, whispers, song, grooves, as legitimate forms of knowledge. And here it draws me to my creative practice. How can we think otherwise? Do we have to keep replicating the models that actually might oppress some minority bodies? So McKittrick earlier work names what this erasure cost at the level of geography. Black lives and lives rendered illegible by similar structure with, and here I quote, structure with discourse that erase and despatialize their sense of place. What she means is that the certain bodies are not simply excluded from existing spaces. They are actively written out of the story who produce and inhabit places. Geography is not neutral ground. It is built by some of the denied to others. Counter-geography, which is part of McKittrick work, knowledge is the practice of producing places, making it, claiming it, insisting on it, from within the very structure that were designed to deny that production. That is a special practice this project is built inside of. So we're getting to the, sorry that it took so long, but I'm not really sorry, by the way. It's just part of that slowness that I referred earlier on, the importance of situated, understand the materiality we're working on. Creative practice and the path of the Synthsorium, not resistance as refusal, but creativity as agency, freedom of movement inside intimate automation on terms that are plural, contested, and accountable. Doing creative practice means knowledge comes from situated application, as we in science is thinking about application. Building paths that reflect your values and bodies of knowledge. And here I'm referring as lived experience, which is where ultimately knowledge is and how academia builds from. Or place new systems in. This is what full stack feminism and that I've mentioned earlier on, name as a toolkit, but a feminist practice of building within the whole system in mind, hardware, software, interface, institution, and the bodies they act on, which is reinforcing what I've just said about materiality and positionality. When tech is coming from the body, the last territory, then thinking about how bodies, our technology, become a practice of reimagining geographies. Here, thinking of McKittrick. Safeguarding becomes not a compliance framework, but a practice of access, openness, and accountability. That is orientation of this project. That is not a motivation for building that is the motivation of building the Synthsorium. So here I'm going to, so this is the first iteration of Synthsorium. I think it's important to show it on the dunk. So the sound is produced by the modular synths that we have here. And then there's this brainwave loop that you have, that's the motor relief. And the bottom is the voice signals. And what you have on the right is a recipe of what the brainwave's interpretation of actually what my well-being is. And in the first stage, I was trying to shift that well-being narrative. Sorry, the music, it's not musical, by the way, it's just noisy. The reason I'm showing this is because it's really important to not only understand that that's the kind of mind that's been put on, the distraction, the fatigue, that condition how I'm understanding my body. But is it really what that is? Do we mean distraction as someone that actually looks on a wider spectrum of things so you can move with safeguarding? So what's happening with wellness narrative and flatness of neuroscience, really, and everyday life? To make it public, they had to flatten it, and doesn't mean that it's accurate. And the theta, gamma, etc., they use, again, neuroscience methods that are applied to structure leads. That doesn't mean it has to be the method we choose to use, but that's typically our practice, I'm reappropriating objects. And here my objects are the technology and neuroscience and computational science. They find all in this field. For me, they're just objects I'm working with. And you can see some of the initial way of doing things. What's important is when I don't have the sound and you just have the GUI, there's nothing that energizes me back. So the technology is very much extractive. When it is connected to my modular synths, it actually gives me something back. And suddenly I'm energized. Or crashing, because sometimes it's absolutely triggering the noise that it generates. But in any case, it's energizing. So it's also thinking about how can we think of systems that still feed the human-centered approach that in these infrastructures. Sorry, you don't need to listen that twice. So here is a MUSE EEG headband, a GUI, and interface that I'm going to go into more depth, and the Neurorights modular synthesizer. Each body introduced a different, so within the interface, I developed the interface towards something else, which I'm going to talk now. So the Synthsorium seeks to access to my body on my own term, remapping body geography. But of course, it's a contested instrument. It's the Gloria contested land. Yeah, it's building with the problems. So music EEG headband goes to the live signals. Yeah, you've got it. That's it. Live signal analysis, and then a P5 JavaScript visualization, web MIDI, and modular synths. The flame actually modular synths, which is one that converts signals from to control change, so it can be interpreted in a modular. So he asked how agency can still negotiate inside intimate automation, as I've mentioned. I'm going to skip because I'm thinking time as well. Oh, is that? Yeah. So, So each border zone, I will identify a specific strategy towards making change and a specific way of refusing opacity or building with opacity or trying to undo it, and building accountability. These strategies are shaped by the core principle of explainable AI, transparency, interpretability, and contestability. So how can I contest the technology that I'm building from? But practicing from below, yeah? DIY approach, I'm a creative coder, I'm not a programmer, and I'm, but then I'm a very clear coder of culture analysis, just because that becomes essential in the next bit. So, yes. So Tudzinski frames this provocation that directly, don't show me your AI, it is rude. A curated set of approach and initiatives assembled by tactical tech that incited AI system must show their working, their provenance, their dependency, and their limits before they are shown to anyone at all. Tudzinski organized this response into category. AI infrastructure seems from different angles: evidence-based demands, teaching under pressure, creative intervention, reverse engineering, material data center, accountability, and vigilance against ambient AI extraction. A lot. Each category carries a value, and that's what I will be working with: visibility, verification, situated pedagogy, agency, transparency, materiality, vigilance. What I want to name here is that the Synthsorium does not sit in one of these categories. It crosses all of them, because the body being entered is not a single problem, but with a single response. It requires all 7 values at once, practice across these 3 zones of conflict. The border zone. This is also a space shared by practitioners working at the intersection of critical technology and collective infrastructure. Mara Karyajani works through Surf Pub, and Winnie soon practice coding otherwise. Both operates within this broader ecosystem, questioning what technological transparency actually requires when it's practiced rather than prescribed. And that's a reference to them. Part 2, the build. So, I don't know what's happened with the slides, but no worries. Border zone 1, getting access to the signals. And here I'm going to start talking to me about the resistance, the problem I had to overcome, the borders. So the burden sentence, no data leave the session. The body signals stay local. The muse is sold as a self-empowerment device. Everything about it, commercial design, is oriented towards keeping you inside the wellness narrative. Subscription, proprietary app, cloud sync, curated score, and away from your own raw signals. Conflict encountered and crossed was the cost and narrative packaging. especially now that they kind of double price their subscription price. The Muse 2 is a multi-sensor research platform sold as a consumer wellness markup. The subscription does not unlock better sensors, it unlock interpretation, as I already mentioned. Data sovereignty. The Muse terms of service include a perpetual commercial license over de-identified session data. The architectural decision, no uplogging, no cloud sync, local only Bluetooth, low energy, if you're not familiar with this. Via Muse device, sorry, I'm getting technical, I might lose some of you. But anyway, Muse device JavaScript, and manual CSV, export only. So these are methods that I have used. Raw EEG never reaches choose Muse, choosemuse.com. The license clause is neutralized because the data never travels through their services. This is the XI principle of transparency applied architecturally. It is all infrastructures. If the user cannot see where the data goes, the system has no right to take it. Subscription gated raw access, the OSC open sound control streaming, was historically locked behind proprietary apps and paid third-party tools. 2025, the BLE protocol was reverse engineering and reverse as open source. So here the first practice is, can I put my data of body on my machine? And that's where it is at the moment. So it's, and obviously as a creative coder, I'm not necessarily have the skills to know how to do that, but I'll explain how I overcome them. Traversia, which we again drawing from Gloria, and the creative coding myself out of the subscription to access my own signal. Wellness framing as normative discipline, good meditation. Is the Muse app mean low arousal, stillness, calm, noisy, hypervigilant, trauma, shape, nervous system, etc.? This is not a neutral baseline. It is a design choice that inherit the medical stating, as I've already mentioned. So I'm going to skip. The body as signal, not as a score, just a reminder. So border zone 2 is the language. And building with, and here, LLMs, so what you might call, it's not vibe code, because I have experience and I review the code and I check, yet there's things that I don't yet know. So I use coding, I use LLMs to code with. And to do that means also I'm starting having a better understanding of the architecture that with which I'm building, as I keep asking it to explain itself, which is the essential part. Again, slower processing, what for a computational scientist might take an afternoon to do, took 3 months for me. So it's to think about that process. Yet each step gave me new information and my knowledge grew. A questionable knowledge and a knowledge that is fabulated too. So it's working with that, yet it's not uncommon in our overall approach to technology and science, etc. So building with LLMs means building with the contradiction, depending on a tool you do not trust and design around that mistrust. Here is what that looked like. The science of EEG and the code needed to process it are both language of exclusion. You cannot access your own biosignal without passing through specialist vocabularies that were not built for you. Scientific language barrier, brain microvoltage oscillation classification is encoded in neuroscience convention that assume clinical expertise. The frequency bands, delta, theta, blah, 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 as a historical approximation, not natural division. On 4 dry electrodes, which is the Muse that you have, just 4 points, there are approximate of approximation. So again, it's the fabulation is already in this interpretation, but that's also a necessary way of moving forward to understand better the system or other ways of being in the world with technology. Individual variation in neurotype medications, stress history, etc., makes and fixed threshold scientifically attainable. Coding language barrier. browser-based real-time biosignal processing, Blade Web MIDI, React, all these abstraction, if you're coming straight into it, meant that I was asking it to present code as a cooking recipe, which is something as well that Winnie Sood and Maria is also doing. But the cooking recipe meant that at least I understood the infrastructure in which those abstractions were placed within. And that meant that I had access to new understanding in this computer science abstraction. So I started cooking literally with Perplexity and Claude more specifically as tools. They are tools that give me access to language, scientific, mathematical, technical, that was not trained, but that control how these systems are built and talk about. That access is real and they matter. It is a mode of defense against gatekeeping systems that were not built for me. But it is also where the Elisa effect, the protection of understanding onto pattern matching system becomes a daily risk. The LLMs perform competence. It does not possess it. Staying alert to the gap, resisting the pull to thread fluency as knowledge is part of the method, especially when LLMs keep claiming X truth, or this is the method of the neuroscience method to do this. And you ask it again later and it will tell you that this method actually is not viable because of X and Y. So it's full of contradiction. However, because I am in creative practice, I'm able to build and move with these. Because I am making no claim to truth. But these tools are also fabulation, what the industry call hallucination, sorry. The LLMs fabulates knowledge it does not have. It is the opposite of critical fabulation. Saidiya Hartman works knowingly with partial archive, naming the limits of what we recover, making the incompleteness part of the method. The LLMs present fabrication as confidence. It generates synthetically correct, semantically plausible text as code that is physiological, culturally, and factually wrong. It cannot verify against the body. Irene Fubara-Manuel applies Hartman critical fabulation directly, apply or explain, I would say, on critical fabulation to algorithmic border system, using it to stress the limit of migration archive as geographies and produce alternate vision from within biometrics regimes designed to exclude. That is not the practice, this instrument inherit fabulation and a counter-geography, not as hallucination. Concrete fabulation in a build, Claude generated heart rate code with a double peak detection and more method that might be more abstract. I'm happy, I'll go through them in a bit rather than read them. This is where XI becomes method rather than topic. Traversia using the tools as defense and access, but designing around that mistrust instead of pretending it is safe. As a bricolage coder, or what we need soon address as coding otherwise, and Mara practice through ServerPub, this is not mastery. It is a negotiation with materials that resist. So, with that, if I can, here we go. So then I'm going to, so you can't see clearly because it's on black and because it's dim, because it's not on, it's not live. The body is not in a machine and it only comes alive when the body is switched on. So, bear with that. So I've changed, you can see that anyway, you can't see, but it has changed the way that the geography of my body from the wellness narrative. I am now trying to reappropriating this analysis as a way of actually does stress means alert, means safeguarding? Or what does it mean to work with? When I'm actually playing with my musical instrument, am I being automated by my instrument, or is it me controlling the instrument? And of course, I have limitation for only points. I am not working with a full head of. So it's really understanding also that I am fabulating with this. Yet it's important to imagine otherwise. And in a process, there is knowledge. With that, part of another aspect was I decided to implement a body memory in my system. Memory matter. It reminds us, it starts configuring my machine from my own terms, my own data that is on my machine, that hopefully is not shared with work. But anyway, it's my work machine. Full of contradiction, eh? So I use or I was suggested a KNN models, which is the nearest neighbor. And I agree with it because it's a point of entry to kind of machine learning, but also because I like that it was proximity. It's your neighbor. To me, conceptually, cultural signals also matter. Replacing the and that it was initially suggested, artificial neural network. KNN is a proximity-based, lazy learning. Again, lazy, we might want to think as slow or whatever it is, but lazy learning classifier. It stores every label example, and when a new reading arrives, compare it to the nearest existing example in the archive to make the classification. It is called lazy because it does no training in advance. The decision is made at the moment of comparison, not pre-computed into opaque weights. So here is thinking, and obviously I've got to experiment with my machine. I'm not at that level yet with my instrument, and I need to test whether that is the right method. But certainly in light of how do I want things to be built, is to implement memory and whether they're part of AN or KAN is different. So with that is thinking about how do we build this, how do we let AI into our bodies or analysis. And then I'm thinking about the different panels themselves, as I said, so each panel is a critical argument. A neural field, what is the body actually doing? The body map, where the body is in a three-body problem. And the KAN panel is what the AI is actually claiming. Panel 4 is the modular since feedback, who is leading? The illusion that can I really get that clarification? So that's it for today. I'll stop at this. What I've not shown, and I'll show you that just for transparency, is, so this is more is actually my, I'm developing a ledger that within, it needs to be verified, but that actually show how the analysis happened, what are the analysis. And I don't know if you're familiar with 23andMe, but they used to do initially, they had a star of research studies, how many research studies there was to affirm such claim that they had. So there's an element of that matter that needs to be transparent, how many studies are supporting those claims. So that's the aim with my ledger, as well as having an index on my single, body. Oops. And the other part is thinking about how the KAN comes into it, and here about modes of classification. But so I wanted to show that aspect, and also how my button, you can't see it because my body is not here, but also where it is, the body is in the machine. So it's also being notified that my body is very much being in the system. And I'll stop at that. Thank you.